Hello, I'm John Patullo, retired educator. Welcome to a forum of candidates running for a seat on the Walnut Creek City Council. Today's forum is sponsored by the Contra Costa Elections Division, Contra Costa TV, and the League of Women Voters of Diablo Valley and West Contra Costa. We are holding this roundtable via Zoom and taping it in the CCTV studio. Please note that the candidates' names that appear on the screen may include their campaign email addresses in case you wish to contact them. The candidates for this office are Haley Ayers, Luella Haskew, Michael Sampson, Cindy Darling, Justin Wendell, Kevin Wilk, and Curtis Reese. Lauren Talbert is unable to attend. We will begin the forum by asking questions for each candidate to answer. While the time is not monitored, please be mindful of the length of your answer, as we want to give all the candidates the opportunity to tell the voters of their thoughts and platforms. So let's begin with the questions. Starting with the reverse order, we have the first question, and this goes to Curtis. If elected, what would be your top priority?
If elected, the top priority for me would be supporting businesses through COVID. We need to ensure that they survive this era, and we need to ensure that they're receiving all the services necessary. There are some very good tools that are available to them that the City Council did an excellent job of providing, and I want to ensure that those tools remain for as long as necessary. And then from that point, we can move on to a transition where we regenerate the businesses, because right now they're in survival mode. Once they get through the regeneration phase, then we can go to a phase where we start to thrive. So while helping the businesses to survive, I think it's important that I get out there, meet with all the business owners that I can get to, work with some of the teams such as the Walnut Creek Downtown Business Organization, so that I can get an understanding, a solid understanding of their needs, as opposed to my perceptions of what they need. And that way I can directly impact the problems that they're dealing with. So again, survival, step one, regeneration, step two, because COVID is going to end at some point. And then we move on to thriving, which is ultimately where we need to be, to regenerate our sales revenue and also ensure that Walnut Creek continues to be that destination for the Bay Area, where people can come, enjoy our landscape, shopping, and the environment as a whole.
All right, thank you. Kevin, this question is for you. What are your thoughts about the current budget and financial status?
Well, the current financial status has taken a big hit. We were looking at a $3 million surplus to end fiscal year 2020 in June, and we went to a $10 million deficit when COVID-19 hit. We then had to do a lot of reduction deficit measures for the next fiscal year that we're currently in, reducing the overall budget by $12 million to be able to meet this year's fiscal need. So we are in an economic catastrophe. And as Mr. Reese had said, economic recovery has to be our number one priority. It currently is right now within the City Council, and it will be for the first several months, certainly after the election. We need to get these businesses back on firm footing. We're already working to help them in restaurants with outdoor dining, with curbside pickup or retail. And because Walnut Creek is such a heavy tax-based city, we do need to ensure that our sales tax revenues continue and do whatever we can help these businesses recover, so that we can also open up so many of our other services and amenities for helping our overall budget and, of course, everybody's quality of life.
All right. Next question is for Justin Weddle. Justin, what do you see as the primary work of the council?
Well, of course, it's implementing the will of the people. All of us on council and the commissioners and everyone in the city. Our primary mission is reporting back to our bosses, which is the public, the taxpayer. So that's why so many council members spend so many hours working with our business community and working with individuals and taking calls. I was just on a call prior to with a concerned community member right before this flew. We spent an enormous amount of time doing that. That's the primary mission of the city.
All right. Cindy, the next question is for you. What kind of relationship should the council have with the community?
As we've talked about, it's very important for the council members to stay in touch with the community. And that includes our business organizations like the Chamber of Commerce that I'm a member of, Walnut Creek Downtown, who I volunteered with through the years. We also have many, many community partners like the Diablo Regional Arts Association, the Trinity Center, and they handle a lot of the heavy work in the city. So we need to keep in touch with them. We also have many neighborhoods associations from Woodlands over to Larkey, up in my neighborhood in Walnut Heights. So we need to stay in close communication with them. And we also need to reach out to the individual members of our city. We have a booth at the Walnut Creek Farmers Market, and I would be happy to go there and listen to people. I have reached out to many of the small business owners in downtown, including some of my favorite restaurants, some of my favorite hair salons, and workout places that I will get back to someday when we can finally go back and work out. So we need to talk to everybody as we move this forward.
Okay. Next question for Michael. If elected, what would be your top priority?
So for me, my number one priority is going to be justice for Miles Hall. So as many people watching may know, Miles Hall was killed by the Walnut Creek Police Department on June 2nd, 2019, just over a year ago. And since that day, there has been no justice for him. The officers who killed Miles Hall were back on the beat within 2 weeks. And if the same incident were to happen again today, I fear that the same result might happen as well. So justice for Miles Hall in the short term means two things. It means first, taking the officers responsible for Miles Hall's death off of the streets. The Hall family has requested that we put them on desk duty until an independent investigation can be completed. I think that's a very modest request and very easy to meet. It bothers me that it has not been met already. And we should, as a city council, we should put pressure on the police department and the city manager to make sure that those officers get taken off of the street. And the second piece of that is implementing in Walnut Creek and the surrounding areas a 24/7 mental health crisis non-police response. So that mental health crisis is not something that the police have to be responsible for. I also think that should be part of a broader effort to take responsibilities and the commensurate funding away from police departments and give them to new departments that can handle them more effectively.
All right. Luella.
She's not there. She'll get back.
She'll get back to us. Okay. We will go with Haley. Let me ask you that same question then. We're going to kind of scramble these up again. If elected, what would be your top priority?
Yeah, I think that we need to pay attention to the jobs and housing balance right now. I think with the pandemic and a lot of people losing their jobs and businesses struggling, and people will then, lose your paychecks. It's hard to keep paying rent and stuff like that. So I think there's an immediate and necessary need to start making sure that we're continuing to provide those services and not just build affordable housing, but temporary housing, transformative, like to get from one place to the other housing, and then also more permanent affordable housing as well.
Okay. Let's go with Curtis now. For you, what are your thoughts about the current budget and financial status?
The current budget, like government organizations all over the country, if not the world, is in bad shape, and that's primarily the fault of COVID. We took a big hit, as Kevin Wilk mentioned. We rely on sales revenue as a substantial part of the budget. And with COVID, businesses took a huge hit. So that had a compounding effect. Number one, because businesses took a hit and people were not shopping, revenue was not going to the businesses. So the businesses are now struggling, and some of those businesses are in peril, if not have already closed down. And then all of that eventually filters into the sales revenue, which is far lower than was expected. And beyond that, not only is there the immediate impact of the businesses not having the volume that they normally have, there are residual effects to that. For example, we are now we're going to have to figure out what we're going to do with our pensions. They're going to be underfunded. We had anticipated a return of about 7% on the CalPERS investments. And recently, at last time I heard, it's at about 4%, which is troubling for us. Fortunately, we do have some tools that we can leverage to help us survive, but the question is, how long will that last? So we're in trouble, and it's going to take some creativity to get through this phase.
Okay. Let's go with Cindy. What are your thoughts about the current budget and financial status?
Well, as everybody's talked about, the city finances come from a couple key sources. We have property tax revenue, we have sales tax revenue, we have hotel revenue, and then we have the revenue that's generated from our arts and our parks and the fees that are paid there. And we've taken a hit, obviously, with sales tax and with the revenue from the arts and parks, because we can't simply operate many of our senior activities, many of our youth activities are not operating. But we were actually starting to struggle a little bit with sales tax prior to the impact of COVID. Retail has been overbuilt in this country, and we are going to have to find a way to make Walnut Creek downtown continue to be attractive and continue to be a place that people want to go. So while I was on the Planning Commission, I supported a number of things that were more experiential, more things that are attractive to millennials, like the Broadway Club, which was a new venue downtown that would have live music. I was also supportive of the new stage at Lesher. And I was also supportive of a number of other things downtown to move us away from kind of the more traditional retail into the more experiential type things. I think that's going to be one of the things that are very important as we try to recover from this. For example, when Broadway Plaza did a major remodel, and when they did that, they included a stage area so that they could have Walnut Creek downtown now holds events there when we can hold events. So we need to have more of those kind of things, give people a reason to come downtown. We also have to work at our parking downtown to make sure that it is available, easy to use, and helps welcome people to our downtown. That's going to be one of the real keys, making downtown exciting, making downtown accessible, and making downtown thrive.
All right. Let's go with Michael Sampson. Same question. What are your thoughts about the current budget and financial status?
Yeah, a lot of people have alluded to this already. It's not good. The current financial situation is not good, currently dealing with a $12 million deficit. The current city council responded by making major cuts to a lot of departments. Arts and Rec got major cuts. The Public Works got major cuts. We made cuts to the library. We made cuts to crossing guards. We didn't make as large of a cut in the police department. So the police department budget this year compared to the same time last year is actually $1.3 million more. So that budget has increased compared to last year. And their share of the city budget as a result of these cuts has increased. So it used to be that the police budget was about 29%. Now it's sitting at around 35%. So that share of the budget has increased. So I do support, like as I mentioned, taking responsibilities and commensurate funding away from police. And I would suggest that we make substantial cuts because the police are an inefficient way financially of dealing with a lot of what we have tasked them with. That's one thing I would do. I would also implement or try to implement a vacancy tax on empty commercial properties. So a modest tax, of course, but what's kind of happening right now is, there's a lot of businesses are dealing with a lot of financial strain. And among other things, they're dealing with high rents. It's very expensive to rent commercial space in downtown Walnut Creek. And at the same time, you walk downtown and you see so many empty properties. So the idea of, supply and demand, well, where's the demand? We have the supply, where's the demand? A vacancy tax, a very modest vacancy tax, we could redirect revenue from that tax towards small businesses to help them survive during this time. It would also encourage people who own property to perhaps lower their rates so that they can attract tenants rather than sticking to their guns and maintaining a really high rate, thinking that, well, if someone does take my higher rate, my long-term profits will be more. The property owner is advantaged by that, but the business owners are not. Rents in downtown overall increase for everybody, and we end up with all these empty buildings. So I think a small vacancy tax on empty commercial properties could go a long way towards easing the burden for small businesses and encouraging more businesses to come in downtown.
All right. The same question for Justin Waddell. All right. Let's see. So let's go with, what are your thoughts about the current budget and financial status?
Well, first of all, we've done well. First, we just recently, in the last couple of years, put $21 million to the side for our pension obligations. That will offset some of the challenges that we know are coming down the road. That's vastly different than most municipalities in this area, really in California. The second positive thing that we've done, especially since I've been on council, is we've implemented a long-term financial plan. So we have a model now that can guide us and give us a better understanding based off our model, a prediction of how our budget is going to end up in the next 10 years. And so we can utilize that in order to massage and make sure that we're making the right decisions today. For the areas of opportunities for improvement, I think there's a lot of things that we can do. First, we should implement policies that I've been advocating for a few years now, like zero-based budgeting. And we've actually, based off my advocacy, we've actually started the implementation with a third of our budget being done by zero-based budgeting. We need to expand that to the rest of the budget. We also need to reimagine our economic development plan. Right now, our economic development plan is based off what has worked in the past, rather than that's what will work in the future. We need to reimagine what Walnut Creek is going to be so that we can drive high-paying jobs here to our community. And lastly, we need to follow policies that are already in place, like our Fix It First policy, where we should be investing in and rebuilding our existing infrastructure rather than building new things and kicking the can down the road. A majority of our infrastructure is over 50 years old. We must find ways of replacing that, and continually spending money on new projects is not the way to go.
All right. Kevin Wilk, as you've already answered this one, I'm going to go a little out of order and have you give us your answer to, if elected, what would be your top priority?
So certainly top priority, again, would be economic recovery. And we talked about that. So let me talk about my second one, which would be climate change and combating climate change. This is the most grave threat to our future after COVID-19. This is long term. And we need to do a lot more than what we already have been doing. I'm proud that I was able to push through 100% clean energy usage powered for all of our city-owned buildings. And that we were able to continue to update now our climate action plan for 2030. But there's a lot more that we can do in there. We need to reduce greenhouse gases by a variety of measures, including incentives for solar panels, as well as incentive for additional CV stations, some types of co-op incentives, potentially for people having electric vehicles, ensuring that our own city-owned vehicles can be electric powered, and just reducing our carbon footprint at every possible way. This has to be a priority, not just locally and not just even regionally, but in every corner of the country and the world. And so I look at climate change as really my biggest priority overall after our initial need of recovering the economy.
Okay, very good. Luella, you have rejoined us.
Yeah,
question?
I left unintentionally.
That's okay. I'm glad you're back. All right, number two.
Thank you.
What are your thoughts about the current budget and financial status?
Our city is really, really strong. As a CPA, I can say confidently the city has a long history of prudent financial practices that I firmly support. and practices that are helping weather the current economic storm. First, we have no long-term operating debt. We have always operated on the cash basis, which means we pay as we go. Second, the budget is consistently balanced. Even now, we closed significant budget gaps. Third is in business times, we don't short our current capital expenses, so we plan for them. Fourth, we have healthy reserves. Yeah, we use some for sealing up the hole in the gap when we had to reduce our expenses by almost 25 million over the prior year and the current year budget. But our reserves right now are equal to just under 6 months of operating expense, even though we don't even consider revenues in that calculation. I'm sure everybody shared that we have a $21 million pension cost irrevocable trust, and we've got the forecasting tool that has improved our long-range fiscal planning. So, that's it.
All right. Thank you. The third question. What do you see as the primary work of the council? And we will start with Kevin Wilk.
I think the primary work of the council is running a fiscally sustainable city. We have an enormous amount of amenities and services and programs, but we have to be able to meet the budget. And so doing that in a manner that not only provides the city the ability to be able to take care of everything from public works and our roads and our parks and our sewer systems, to ensuring that we've got a beautiful, maintained city downtown, and ensure that we've got vibrant departments that can handle all the different aspects that give people in Walnut Creek the best quality of life possible. We do rely on sales taxes, but we rely on a number of other fees and taxes to also be able to give the opportunities for everybody to enjoy all of that Walnut Creek has to offer. And so I believe it's the duty of the City Council to best manage that, make sure that we have enough money in reserves, but enough money that we're giving people the opportunity to really enjoy everything that Walnut Creek has to have and be able to make the next council and the next generation even better off than we currently are.
All right, thank you. Curtis Reese, same question for you. What do you see as the primary work of the council?
The primary work of the council is to represent the constituents in making decisions about the day-to-day business of running the city. And in addition to that, it's ensuring that we have the roadmap in place so that we know what path we're on and have a clear understanding of our destination. So in order to do that, you have to ensure that you are listening to the constituents, but beyond listening, you have to actually hear them. And what I mean by that is not just giving them the opportunity to speak, but hearing what they have to say, letting them know that they've been heard, and then taking steps as much as possible to put in place those things that they've asked for. But also, it's the duty of the City Council to make the tough decision, to ensure that what the constituents are asking for and what they want also coincides with what is needed to maintain the safety, security, and the long-term health, so to speak, of the city.
All right. Cindy, same question. What do you see as the primary work of the council?
Well, the primary work of the council is to manage the government of Walnut Creek so that it provides the amenities and the experiences and the safety that people are expecting from us. And that revolves around the budget. And the budget is, of course, driven by the priorities set by the council. So every 2 years, the council looks at its priorities and says, are these the most important things? And I would, as a council member, reach out to my constituents, the business interests, the folks downtown, the different community groups, make sure that I'm representing them when we set those priorities. Then we take those priorities and arrange the budget around them to try to meet those priorities. The budget is going to be tight for a couple of years, but we are Walnut Creek and we have the grit and the resolve to come out of this. And so I am confident that we will return to a point where we can begin to restore those things that people look to Walnut Creek to provide, things like parks, recreational opportunities, arts, the leisure center, the things downtown that make Walnut Creek who we are. So you go through, you set your priorities, you arrange your budget around it, you ask your staff to implement that budget in the most efficient way possible. And then you look at the results and see, did you get to where you wanted to go? And then you start the cycle over again. In my experience with government before I came to the Planning Commission, I managed budgets for a number of agencies. I continue as the chair of the Oversight Committee for the San Francisco Bay Restoration Authority, looking to make sure that we're taking our tax dollars and spending them efficiently. That's what I do, and it's what I can bring to Walnut Creek.
All right. Luella Haskew, this will be the same question. Yes. What do you think you see as the primary work of the council?
The primary work of the council is to set the long-range plans for the community. We have to do that through a number of methods. We do listen, we do adapt, we set our own priorities, we boil them down into our priorities, we monitor them, we act as ambassadors for our community, we act as judges in certain matters related to real estate measures, and yet again, I can't emphasize this enough, we need to listen. And what we've learned this year is it doesn't make any difference how well you planned the future. The future can change what you have to do. So what you have to also be is nimble and adapt to things like COVID, like taking and embracing issues of social justice and even whether we can breathe the air and what we need to do to protect our citizens through these very difficult times.
Thank you. Haley, same question for you as well. What do you see as the primary work of the council?
Hi, thanks. So I think everyone's kind of alluded to the work that the city council does, but I'd kind of like to touch base just kind of on the emotional work that the city council should be doing and does and doesn't. I think that in a time like right now, if you are a person who watches city council meetings, I know as a candidate running for city council, I've been educating myself and watching the city council meetings, and they can be anywhere from 4 to 6. They've been 8 hours before of lined up comments of public comments. And I think that as the work as the city council is the emotional work to connect to people and not just listening to respond or to defend, but listening to really understand and see where we can help listen and get some movement and some understanding and some justice for our community. And I would also say that it is to implement policy, like I believe it was Luella said, long term. It's not just about where we can cut now, but where we can set up our community to succeed after this pandemic and the coming recession. I graduated from UCSB right after the last Great Recession, and it is so hard to find a job as a person after something like this for years to come. So just making sure that we're setting up pathways to careers for people, working with our local businesses to see where we can help them and to help create some high-paying jobs and help really our communities succeed in the long term for future generations.
All right, thank you. Now, Justin, you have already answered question number 3, so I'm going to give you question number 1. If elected, what would your top priority be?
My top priority has been and will always be our economy and our finances. And I really look at this from a 3-pronged approach, especially with the onset of COVID. First, or the Walnut Creek City Council and really the entire city entity has spent a lot of time in developing the Walnut Creek Together and the Walnut Creek Rebound program. We need to put all of our effort into ensuring that the businesses in our downtown and throughout Walnut Creek survive. It's important not only for our economy, but also for our city finances, but most importantly, for those individuals that are working at those businesses. That is our number one priority throughout the city. The second aspect of this is that we must look at our zoning in our downtown areas specifically. We must ensure that we're addressing what the business community is asking for and what the market's asking for, so that we can drive high-paying jobs to our community, and of course keep as many businesses that can survive during COVID and post-COVID alive. And then lastly, and something that I have focused on immensely during my terms in office, is reimagining what Walnut Creek can be. Many individuals today have spoken about our reliance, and really our sole reliance, on sales tax dollars. We must reimagine what Walnut Creek can transition to in order to not only provide high-paying jobs so that people don't have to commute out of our city, which an overwhelming majority of people do, but also bring additional tax base to our economy so that we don't have to rely so heavily on sales tax dollars.
All right, very good. The last question I'm going to ask each of you. One of you may have already answered this, and I will refer to a question that you have not answered yet. But starting with Justin, what kind of relationship should the council have with the community in light of all the things that have been going on? Could you let us know and expand on that, please?
Well, of course, a strong connection, as strong as it can be. And again, that's why we spend so much time as council members and really council candidates out in the community, whether it's on Zoom meetings now or in the past, not walking and knocking on doors. One of my favorite things to do when running for council is actually walking and knocking on doors and getting to speak to the community and getting to understand what their issues are. So without that, I really believe unbreakable bond between an elected official and a council member or whatever level of office that you're at, and with the community, and having a firm understanding of what they're asking for, what they want implemented, and what their concerns are. I don't know how anyone can be successful at this job.
All right. Next, Kevin, could you answer that same question? What kind of relationship should the council have with the community?
Yeah, well, the council needs to have a strong relationship with the community, both individually as well as a body. Individually, one of the most frustrating things during the last several months of COVID is that I haven't been able to be out as much meeting the different businesses and meeting individuals and speaking at events that might have anywhere from a few dozen to a few hundred. That just hasn't been possible. So we've been doing it over Zoom. And certainly during the last 3 years, I was out in the community with new businesses that were opening, with events where they would have me speaking on the issues of the day in city council, what vision I had, and what some of the priorities there were as well. And we have to listen to the community within the confines of the city council chamber, now being on Zoom as well, hearing what they say, processing. And unfortunately, due to the Brown Act, we're not able to sometimes address those issues immediately, to the frustration of members of the community that may be talking on certain issues that are passionate for them. But we do our best in being able to then talk about that afterwards and put those on agendas in the future, and also be able to address some of the issues. Like, for example, a 24/7 mental health crisis response is now being addressed. I am speaking at the County Board of Supervisors and Mayor's conferences and getting everybody in the county on board behind this, because it has been important. We heard from the community originally after the death of Miles Hall, and we've been moving forward on that, along with anti-diversity task forces and anti-bias training, and doing whatever we can to continue to address those issues alongside all the issues that continue both economically and socially. So these are things that we continue to have to be out in the community. And even though it may be frustrating sometimes for people not be able to get immediate action on it, the work of the council is continuing, and sometimes it takes longer than we would originally hope for.
All right. Luella Haskew, the same question. What kind of relationship should the council have with the community?
We should have an involved relationship, and that means participating in many of the things that are going on. We should attend nonprofit of fundraisers. We should go to the theater. We should go in the park. We should talk with the business folks. It's very important that we set the tone of acceptance in our community, that we hold our arms open and we say that all people have the right to be here and that we want diversity and a future that reflects the world. I am one of the leaders. Kevin always claims it first, so he gets it. I'm one of the leaders who has brought the mental health response team to the mayor's conference, and the job there, because it is too big for our city to do, is to unite cities. And we're going to have to sell the idea to some cities who don't understand how important this is and how this will affect their communities as well, and does affect their communities as well. So our relationship with the community should be with open arms and welcoming and listening and appreciating everything that there is about our community.
Oh, thank you. Curtis Reese, same question. What kind of relationship should the council have with the community?
The council needs to have a very close and strong relationship with the community. Not only should they engage with the community in the formal interactions that you would have in fundraisers and other various programs, but also it's important that we have informal interaction with the community. And earlier I talked about listening versus hearing. What I was alluding to was really getting somewhat intimate with the individuals of the community to understand their perspectives, not just maybe the blurbs that they would say in a quick one-on-one conversation, but really understanding what it is they're asking for, what it is they need. Sometimes people can't articulate it, but just by spending time with them, you can often get a clear understanding of what's needed. In addition to that, I not only do I look different, I think I've lived a different experience than the rest of my cohorts here that are running for city council. And that different experience brings a different perspective. And I think I have the ability to understand people with a different ear. I think I hear things differently. I understand a different world, and I understand this world, so to speak. So that different perspective allows me to be creative in responding to the needs of the people. It allows me, I think, to have a different type of understanding. And one of my strengths is compassion. I intend to bring compassionate leadership to the city council. And by compassionate leadership, I think it means ensuring that people understand that they've been heard. If they're asking for something that we can't provide, we need to be honest and let them know we can't and why we can't. We can provide it. We need to let them know what we are going to do to provide it. And also people need to understand that there is a level sense of urgency around providing the things that they ask for. People are not naive. They understand that government wheels turn slowly. But if you show them that you are as interested in achieving goals, the same goal, as they are in ensuring that you work to achieve those goals, I think there's mutual understanding. So not only is it about the city council understanding the people, I think it's about ensuring that the people understand the city council.
Okay, thank you. Next, Haley. That'll be the same question. What kind of relationship should the council have with the community?
Yeah, I think I alluded to this in the last question about the work that the city council does. I think the relationship with the community should be that your community feels heard and served. We sign up to run for city council or to serve as a city council member to serve our community. And I think that in those cases, our community would be better served rather than spending, for example, 8 hours in public comment at a city council meeting, would be better served by a forum where they could be heard, like a town hall. I think it's so important that we're engaging with our community. I love all the social media posts that come out from the city of Walnut Creek and those pages, because it really does, especially in a world right now where we're at home, we're also online more, we're also just in a more technological world, that we are engaging with the community and making sure that they know that we're here for us. I like that Justin Waddell offers his office hours and his phone number a lot of times after these meetings. So just making sure that people know we're accessible and that we hear them and that we want to be able to make change.
All right. Michael Sampson, the same question. What kind of relationship should the council have with the community?
Thank you. I believe that the city council members of the city council should serve as an instrument of the public. I believe that city council should be servant leaders, which is not to say, of course, that we just do whatever the public wants to do. I mean, obviously, people in the public can disagree with each other. So we have to cultivate our own analysis of the issues at hand. And so that analysis will translate into a vision for the city. We communicate that to the citizens and go from there. But basically that we are servant leaders and that we function as an instrument of the public. In the year 2020 and in the 21st century more broadly, I think that vision needs to be bolder than city councils in the past have been comfortable committing to. We really need to reimagine how active a local government can be and how bold a local government can be. One of the things that has gotten me into this race is my disappointment with the current city council. And among the many things that I'm disappointed in is the sort of passive nature of leadership here. I think there's sort of a tendency to wait for other cities to try something and then we see the results, or wait for the county to take action and then we'll go along with that, or wait for the state, or wait for, as opposed to taking the bold action ourselves. I think it's important that we do that. I want to address quickly something that Kevin Wilk said about the Brown Act. He mentioned that people in city council meetings get frustrated because they voice their concerns, but the Brown Act says that the city council can't respond. I want to make sure that we're clear about something, that that's not what the Brown Act says. City council can respond. They just can't respond in real time. But as we've seen, at the end of every city council meeting, pretty much every city council member ends up speaking for a number of minutes. And it is in those instances where the public is feeling that, we talk and talk for hours and hours and hours at these meetings. And then we hear what you have to say at the end of the night. And it's like nothing that is raised in those meetings is concerned, or none of those concerns are addressed. It feels like the city council is kind of operating in their own world, not the same world that we are raising concerns about. And so that's where the frustration comes from. I think Curtis said it well just now, which is that we're not naive. We know that government acts slowly, but we need to see that the city council understands what we're saying and is taking action. And we have been noticing that city council doesn't seem to understand what we're saying because their comments betray that, and that the action that they're taking does not meet the needs of our community. So I think a city council where the leadership serves as instruments of the public would be responsive to public concerns.
Okay. Now, Cindy, because you have already answered this question in that first set, I'm going to give you your last question, which is, if elected, what would be your top priority?
Well, I'll do a little bit of addition to the previous answer that I gave, because what we have here is a great example of the breakdown that we've had. And if I was on council, we should have identified a much better process at the get-go when we realized the severity of the problem that we were facing with the community with over Miles' death. We should have arranged a way so that people could talk to the council in a regular agenda item so that people can ask their questions and then the staff can either respond or the council can respond. We needed to make that a two-way conversation at the very get-go. And we could have avoided a lot of problems. Building those kind of relationships is what I used to do professionally, helping people work out very difficult problems. And we're Walnut Creek, we could do this, and it's not too late. We can make this relationship work, people, we can. So my highest priority, we've already talked about the economy, but I also wanted to talk about sustainability and climate change. We have an opportunity to look at jobs housing balance because transit is where the greenhouse gases come from. So we need to look at that. We need to complete our sustainability action plan. We need to target aggressive climate change. And that means both reducing emissions. My husband and I run a company that focuses on innovative green solutions. There's lots of new technology coming on board, and we can bring that new technology to Walnut Creek and look at ways to get into negative emissions, ways to recycle all the organic waste that comes from our city, and make us the leader, continue to play a leader in a role on climate change. Kevin and I have talked about this. If I was on council, we'd be part of the coalition of cities across this country working to address climate change, because it is, when we're done with COVID, it's the next big one. And the scientists have been warning us about COVID for years, and we didn't really do much about it. They're also warning us about climate change, and we need to be ready.
All right. Thank you to our candidates for answering these important questions. Each of them will now have 2 minutes to make a closing statement, and we will begin with those statements, beginning with Curtis.
Well, first of all, thank you for providing this opportunity for me to speak to my vision and hopefully give the community a clear understanding of what I represent. My wife and I moved to Walnut Creek 18 years ago because when we got here, we found that the people were welcoming, the landscape was beautiful, and it just felt like a place that we could call home. So we settled here and we raised our 2 children, both of whom are in high school now here in the city. And I was hoping that this would be a peaceful place, and for several years, it did not disappoint. Unfortunately, we got to a point where there were some problems, specifically starting with the death of Miles Hall, whom I've known his entire life. And that compelled me to start working with the city to do what I could to ensure that that situation would never happen again. So social justice is the thing that prompted me to begin my journey to city council. But that said, it's not the sole reason. I believe that because of these social justice issues that have not been properly addressed, we are unable to get to the business, the day-to-day business of running the city, which is what the city council is charged to do. And one of my skill sets, I believe, would be to quiet the storm, help the people understand that they're being heard, show that sense of urgency so that we can move beyond the complaining about the issue that happened with Miles Hall to resolving it, and then get to the business of doing things like supporting the businesses, fixing the homeless problem, and doing what we could to ensure that the city is as strong as it can be. I will do what I can to leverage my business experience, my 20 years of managing global teams, managing budgets, and making tough decisions to apply that to the city and do what I can to ensure that the city is as strong as it can be.
Okay. Thank you very much. Next will be Kevin Wilk.
Great. Well, thank you, first of all, to the Contra Costa Elections and League of Women Voters for hosting the forum. 4 years ago, I was honored by the residents of Walnut Creek to be elected to their city council. During my first term as a Walnut Creek council member, I've ensured that important civic along with societal issues were addressed consistently, and I've actively listened and responded to various group concerns in Walnut Creek. Locally, I led the effort in bringing free downtown Wi-Fi for everyone. And I also led the approval for all city-owned buildings now being powered by 100% clean energy. My involvement meant that we're now updating the climate action plan to take us through 2030 as one of our top priorities. I've been a leader in bringing more arts downtown and approving an outdoor concert stage at the Lesher Center. And when COVID-19 hit, I formed a business leader roundtable to come up with ideas for helping getting our retail businesses and restaurants on a road to recovery. And I led the council in officially recognizing Pride Month in Walnut Creek and raising the Pride flag, one of the first in the East Bay. But there are those challenges ahead. We need to work closely with local businesses to recover from the financial impact of the pandemic while continuing to meet health protocols. And we need to respond meaningfully to issues raised by current protests on systemic racism, some of which have already been occurring that I've advocated for, like a diversity task force and proposing a 24/7 mental health crisis response unit. We need to make it easier for companies to provide larger job opportunities for all job sectors locally in order to meet the needs of our next generations and to rely less on lengthy commutes. And we need to have more affordable housing for not only the adults that need it now, for our children who will also need other options on living closer to where they grew up. I believe we can address our priorities while ensuring responsible growth, good neighborhoods, long-term fiscal health, supporting our businesses, and our unique quality of life for all our residents and visitors.
Okay.
I'm honored so many of our former city mayors and community leaders are supporting my campaign, but we are in for a challenging road ahead in many ways, and it'll take experienced leadership to help get us there. But knowing the people of Walnut Creek are ready for this challenge, we'll accomplish it together. And for more information, please go to kevinwilk.walnutcreek.com. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Next will be Justin Weddell.
Thank you. And of course, thank you to the League of Women's Voters and the Costa election division for putting on this event. My name is Justin Weddell, and I have a solid record of experience in action. 4 years ago, I made each of you a promise of a principal platform based on a strong business environment, prudent financial policies, public safety, and fighting to better your quality of life, all of which I am proud to say I delivered on. In a time when many of us do not trust our elected officials due to unkept or empty promises, it is with great pleasure that I report back to you my promises made, my promises kept. Yet COVID and the social unrest has clearly changed the trajectory of our community. We need proven elected officials with a definable track record that can leverage their past successes while laying out a clearer vision for an even better community. And that is exactly what we get with me. As a community member, we must support our business community through the COVID downturn and recovery, promote a welcoming and inclusive environment for all, keep us safe while focusing on the necessary changes to our police mission, and of course, fight for funding for our pools, arts, recreation, open space, and library programs. Leadership and action requires a strong connection to the community, openness to new ideas, and close relationships with our businesses, all of which are reflected in the broad support of individuals that have endorsed my campaign. I fundamentally believe that government works best when our elected officials are held accountable. As such, if you have any questions, please visit my website at justinweddell.com, or, as Haley stated, call me or text me on my cell phone, which is 925-899-2535. I'd be honored to have earned your vote in November. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next up will be Cindy Darling.
Hi, I want to thank the League, the county, and CCTV for hosting this forum. I've spent my career in public service where I've learned how to solve problems, balance competing priorities, and manage limited resources. I've lived in Walnut Creek for almost 20 years with my family, and as a small business owner and Chamber of Commerce member, I've worked to help our economy grow. I've also served this city for 10 years on the Planning Commission, and I chair the Oversight Committee for the San Francisco Bay Restoration Authority, ensuring that our tax dollars are being well spent. I'm the right choice for City Council because I have the skills, experience, and the fresh perspective that we need to bring this city back together and find solutions that work for everyone. Because we are facing multiple challenges. With COVID shaking up our economy, impacting our businesses, and as we've talked about, our city finances, it's more critical than ever to safely attract visitors to downtown Walnut Creek. We pride ourselves on the many amenities that our city provides, where there's something actually for everybody. And we need to partner with business and community groups to protect our parks and open space, support our seniors, address homelessness, and keep us safe and healthy. Our country and our city are having a historic and long overdue conversation about police, race, and mental health. Our police serve a critical public safety function, and they need the training and resources, but above all, the accountability to keep us all safe. But they are not the answer to every public safety situation. We need to have that alternative response for our community members in mental health crisis, and I commit to get that working. We can also make our economy work for everyone by tackling the jobs housing balance and addressing parking, traffic, and infrastructure. We should continue to lead on climate change and attract new green businesses, encourage responsible development that provides a place for working families to live here in our city so that people can stay here instead of having commuting out into the hinterlands. Walnut Creek deserves a council that can work together, that can hammer out our differences and make very sound decisions. Congressman Desaulnier and Huffman, and Assemblymember Bauer Kahan, County Supervisors Mitchoff and Joya, as well as 10 former mayors and over 50 appointed
Okay.
and elected officials have
Sorry to
endorsed.
interrupt, but your time is up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next will be Michael Sampson.
Thank you. I want to thank everybody for putting on this event. I really appreciate this opportunity to speak alongside all my other competitors. How will history remember the year 2020? We are living through a seismic moment in which we face multiple generation-defining crises simultaneously. If the United States is to meet this moment with dignity and compassion, with its soul intact, then we need bold legislative action. And it's not going to start at the national level. It's not going to start at the state level. It needs to start at the local level in communities like Walnut Creek. Since 2008, I've been proud to call Walnut Creek my home. My father taught U.S. history and AP government at De La Salle High School, which allowed me to attend on a scholarship. He passed away before I was able to attend on my freshman year, but I inherited his passion for politics. Today, I'm a teacher, a musician, and a dedicated progressive. I'm running because I believe that the current city council does not have the will, the courage, or the imagination to meet this historic moment. Their most recent budget, for example, defunds the libraries, defunds the arts, special ed, public works, and more. At the same time, the police budget received an increase of $1.3 million compared to last year. Walnut Creek needs new leadership. Our campaign pledges to defund the police and reinvest those funds into the community, including in mental health crisis response, homeless services, small business support, climate justice, urbanization, the arts, and other initiatives that uplift vulnerable and marginalized members of our community. These initiatives will make Walnut Creek safer, more vibrant, and more just. We will bring justice for Miles Hall. Our campaign does not accept that the injustices we witness daily are inevitable. We believe a better world is possible.
Okay.
Learn more at Samson for WC.us.
Thank you. Next up, Luella Haskew.
Thank you very much. And thank you to the League of Women Voters and the County Elections Office and CCTV for sponsoring this forum. This chance to see the candidates in action has been a long and valued tradition for our community. Some background about me. I am a CPA and the only council member with a professional financial background. As you have heard from most of my fellow candidates, our understanding of finance is critical to our city's success. While I was in practice, my clients included large and small businesses, and my services ranged from tax planning to best practices for budgeting and forecasting. My profession and my years of community involvement have been invaluable to my work on council. I have focused on the impending pension tsunami and how to mitigate the financial burden over time, the economic benefits of workforce housing and jobs and housing balances throughout our community, the value of investing to address our homeless challenges, including being Walnut Creek is a statewide leader in affordable housing and building it and keeping it in good shape. This is the best way to help and serve the homeless. The implementation of our new economic development plan, money makes the world go round, and we have to find ways to adapt to the new culture. And finally, the economic value of the arts and the best example of a public-private partnership, which we have seen in the new Leisure Plaza. I have earned the respect of my fellow colleagues in other cities, and they have appointed me to serve on the board of the Contra Costa Transportation Authority. This means my work in Walnut Creek has meant more roadway funding, more transportation options for seniors and the disabled, and safer walking and biking options for kids.
Okay, thank you.
Just
Your
as-
2 minutes, I'm sorry to interrupt, but your 2 minutes is up. The red cards are up. Thank you.
Thank you, sorry.
It's okay. And lastly, Haley Ayers.
Last but not least. So I did want to just thank everyone again, not just those CCTV, the county, and the Diablo Valley League of Women's Voters for putting this on, but also everyone who's watching. We are in such a crazy time in this world that just coming and watching and learning more and engaging and wanting more for your community is such an important thing right now. You should just pat yourself on the back. A quick introduction to myself. My name is Haley Ayers, as you've seen. I am the only candidate on this forum today that was born and raised here in Walnut Creek. I went to all of the schools here. I played on the soccer fields here. I swam in the pools here. My first job was actually with the city of Walnut Creek, lifeguarding at the Heather Farm pool and the Larky pool. So I got my first paycheck here from the city of Walnut Creek. In terms of my education, I have a master's degree with emphasis in public policy analysis and public management. And throughout my professional career, I worked mostly in the emergency fire and water restoration industry. So I know closely about how these fires are affecting people. I worked mostly as a liaison between homeowners and their insurance companies to make sure that they got justice and the correct funding that they deserved and that their insurance should be providing them. In terms of my experience, publicly or more public government focused experience, I spent the last year 20 to 30 hours a week on the Contra Costa civil grand jury, investigating, evaluating, and reporting findings and recommendations for improvement for local government. So I am not a stranger to budgets and policy here. And I just think that Walnut Creek is ready for some change. And truthfully, I think my empathy, my education and policy analysis, and my experience in government accountability with the grand jury will help me be a great candidate for the city of Walnut Creek. You got 3 votes, so I'm hoping I can be one of them. And let's connect.
All right, thank you very much. This concludes our forum of candidates running for the Walnut Creek City Council on November 3rd. Once again, these candidates are Curtis Reese, Kevin Wilk, Justin Waddell, Cindy Darling, Michael Sampson, Luella Haskew, Haley Ayers. Lauren Talbert was unable to attend. For more information on the candidates, visit votersedge.org. The Elections Division has set up multiple drop-off boxes around the county. For the one nearest you, please visit www.cocovote.us or call the office at 925-335-7800. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to vote by November 3rd.